Okay. Should I stay or should I go? That is the official video from the Clash. And I thought it would be an interesting, different way to open the video because I'm going to talk about the use of modal auxiliaries, which includes should. Should, that's the main one. It's a good example of should. Modal auxiliaries, a word like may, should, shall, can, would, will, ought to, and they have their equivalents in Spanish, and I'm not going to talk so much about the equivalents as I'm going to give some examples on how to use these things in English, and I'm also going to try to keep it short because I found that when I took my first take on this video, it was way too long. But let's start with should. You should wash your clothes. That's a suggestion. It's a suggestion that includes the idea of washing your clothes. You should wash your clothes. It's the best thing to do. How do you make this a question? Well, with the use of modal auxiliaries, you make a question in English just like you make a question with the verb to be. You simply interchange the position of the subject and the verb. You put the verb first, the subject second. You should wash your clothes. You is a subject. Should wash is the verb. We're only going to interchange should. We're going to leave wash as it is. Should you wash your clothes? This is how you ask a question using the modal auxiliaries. Now, what I want to point out is that there are some modal auxiliaries where it sounds a little awkward to ask the question that way, even though it is grammatically correct. For example, you must wear a helmet. Must you wear a helmet? Well, you can ask, must you wear a helmet? It sounds a little bit awkward, even though it is grammatically correct. And in English, you would have more tendency to say something like, do you think I have to wear a helmet? Another thing we do in English to make questions a little less intense, a little less strong sounding, is we might use a statement. I wonder. I should go. Should I go? I could ask the question as they asked in the song, should I stay or should I go? And a more comfortable way of asking that is to put it into a statement. I wonder if I should go or if I should stay. Then another modal that can be a little confusing is might. You might get cold without your coat. Now you can properly ask the question grammatically correctly by saying, might you get cold without your coat? But it's not something you're likely to say. You're more likely to say as a native speaker, do you think I'll get cold without my coat? I wonder if I might get cold without my coat. Could is very straightforward. You can just turn them around and it's perfectly valid to ask the question. Could is very much like might. It's a possibility. You could give me that ball. Could you give me that ball? Or you could use these other alternate forms and sound more polite, but it's perfectly okay to say, could you give me that ball? But I might say, do you think you could give me that ball? I wonder if you could give me that ball. Would. Would is a tendency. I would do it if it were required. And I can ask it perfectly comfortably by just exchanging the verb and the subject position. Would I do it if it were required? And I might tone it down. Might make it a little less strong if I said, I wonder if I would do it if it weren't required. May and might. There's a lot of confusion with may and might because the word might is actually the past tense of the word may. Might is always used to indicate only a possibility, but may can be used to indicate either a possibility or a request for permission, and it's kind of hard to keep these things straight, so I'll give you a couple examples. I might buy a new car. How do I make that a question? I could say, might I buy a new car? That sounds a little awkward. It sounds a little too formal. I would more likely say, I wonder if I should buy a new car. Do you think I should buy a new car? But the statement, I may go home at 9 p.m., that statement could mean two things. It could mean someone gave me permission to go home at 9 p.m., or it could mean there's a possibility of me going home at 9 p.m. I might go home at 9 p.m. That's a possibility. So I might wonder to myself if I'm going home at 9 p.m. May, on the other hand, there are some instances where it's quite clear that you don't mean permission. For example, it may rain in the evening. Well, a statement of possibility using may, in this case, it's obvious it means possibility because no one gives the rain permission to fall. It means it might rain in the evening. It may rain in the evening. The words are interchangeable. And you could ask the question, might it rain in the evening? If you answered the question, yes, it might, that would be valid. But may it rain in the evening? No, that's not a question that would be asked because in the sense of asking a question with may, it's like you're asking if you can give the rain permission to fall. It gets very complex, and you actually have to have a lot of conversations to get all this straight. Ought to. Let me talk about ought to, and that'll be the end of this video because it's getting rather long. Ought to is identical with should. If you should or ought to do something, that means it's the best choice for you to make. You could choose to do something that you ought to do, or you could choose not to do something you ought to do. This would be your choice. But there are possible consequences for not doing what you ought to do. If you ought to do something, you might not do it if you were given the choice. And if you should do something, then you ought to get on the ball and do it. This is another English expression that you'll hear quite a bit. Get on the ball. That means get yourself prepared. Start working. Get on the ball. You could do it, or you might not do it. It's up to you. It's your choice. But you ought to get it done. You ought to get on the ball. I'm not going to say more. There's more things I could say with ought to and should, but the video is getting too long. I want you to listen to the end. So first, I'm going to ask you to subscribe to my channel so you can keep up with these things. And if you live here in Tlaquepaque or in Las Terrazas, somewhere near to where we are, I give classes one-on-one, clases particulares, at your home, at my home, wherever it is, somewhere in the vicinity of where I live. I'll help you practice with all these things. I will help you perfect your fluency in English. So subscribe to my channel. Join the Facebook group, Learning American English with me, Sterling, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye.